I'm Charlia Le Breton, and I'm with GNO. Today, we have the opportunity to talk to someone very special about some very important things that are happening within the Haitian and Haitian American community. Today, I'm here with Paul. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Paul Christian Nofi, and I am the Community and TPS Organizer at the Family Action Network Movement, FUM.
Wonderful. So can you talk to me a little bit about what exactly is happening within the Haitian and Haitian American community today, right now, that is causing so much, attention?
Well, we're dealing with many issues, but one of the principal issues that Haitians in this country are facing, people of Haitian origin, are the U.S.-Mexico border expulsions. Mm-hmm. And we feel very, very, very strongly that when the new Biden-Harris administration came into power on January 20th, they put out a moratorium mm-hmm. that basically halted all deportations at that point, viewing a 100-day period of review. Mm-hmm. And what we have seen, however, is that an expulsion called a Title 42 expulsion that's happening on the U.S.-Mexican border of arrivals, be they from Haiti, be they from Central America, be they from Africa. They are being expelled to their countries of origin, and we believe very, very strongly that we need to appeal to the decision makers, to the Biden administration, specifically to halt all deportations and expulsions. We believe that the Title 42 expulsions are not warranted. There is even medical opinion around that, mm-hmm. That is not a necessary step, and that we really are very, very strongly pressuring the U.S. administration that ICE call off those expulsions.
Right. And can you tell us just a little bit about what exactly is the Title 42?
Title 42 is it's a series of rules that are being implemented. They were put in by the Trump administration, we believe in a very racist way, mm-hmm. To target people based on fears about the pandemic, whereas we know full well that the pandemic is a reason not to move people around, that people should be remaining in place. The less movement you have, the better that people will be protected. And there are a series of other reasons why that logic was really bogus. And unfortunately, it has continued in the Biden administration, while taking the major step of halting classical deportations, have not halted the Title 42 expulsions. And that's why we believe very strongly, for a series of reasons, that that needs to happen right away.
Yeah. And looking at specifically Haitian deportations right now, given the climate that's happening in Haiti, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about why it's so essential that we do appeal to decision makers and we stop and halt expulsions and deportations? And just a little bit about, thinking about the history of Haitian deportations and kind of blockages that Haitian migrants and immigrants have faced in the U.S., why, this is all culminating in this moment the way it is.
Well, that's a great question. So I would add that our appeal mm-hmm. to halt Title 42 expulsions is to ask them to halt them for people of all origins, coming from all countries. But you are absolutely correct that Haiti today is in a crisis. Haiti is in a human rights crisis. Haiti is in a political crisis, in a governance crisis. Yeah. And obviously there's also the reasons of the pandemic. For a series of reasons, we are seeing human rights being violated in Haiti at every level. We are seeing politically motivated assassinations. Yeah. We are seeing terrible, terrible incidents of gender-based violence, where women, and even in some cases schoolgirls, are kidnapped, raped, and murdered. We remember the life of Eveline Sincere, mm-hmm. A very young schoolgirl who was killed. Kidnapped, violated, and killed. And we believe that impunity has to stop. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely necessary that the international institutions, that foreign governments, that important power brokers at the international level, including the UN, the OAS, the United States, mm-hmm. Not continue to support basically wanton acts of a state that is morphing more and more dictatorial. We see, for example, the February 7th date of 2021, and the Federation of the Bar in Haiti was very clear that marks the end of
President Moise's term.
Exactly, and yet we have a situation where Supreme Court judges not only are being fired, which is completely unconstitutional, that's overreach on the executive branch, but in some cases are being arrested, they're being harassed. Journalists covering demonstrations have been shot while they are filming.
Protests in Haiti have intensified as Jovenel Moïse, in violation of the country's constitution, has refused to step down. Opposition political parties and social organizations have been mobilizing in the country since early January against moves by the president to extend his time in office.
Demonstrators also have been targeted. And so we think it's very, very important that the international community not continue to support these actions. We know also the terrible rampant corruption that's going on in Haiti today. We see the Petrocaribe scandal, which has really exploded in a situation where a government friendly to that of Haiti, which is Venezuela, which was very supportive, particularly of the poor majority in Haiti, that they felt that there was a debt because Haiti had helped Venezuela gain independence 200 years earlier in the Bolivarian
as well as so many
Revolution.
other countries in Latin America.
Exactly, we have that tradition. We even helped Greece.
Yes.
We helped Greece when its independence 200 years ago from the Turks. I believe next year will be the 200th anniversary of that. So, we see at all levels that this was a way for Venezuela to give back to Haiti and to give back to Haiti's poor. And we see that this money was either squandered or outright embezzled. And then there was this action of not recognizing Venezuela on behest of the Trump administration, which referred to Haiti as. So, this, for a series of reasons, people in Haiti are very, very, very upset. And there is a campaign there, basically asking, Côté l'argent Petrocaribe, where are the Petrocaribe funds? Where have they gone? And this has created a very, very, very heightened sense of illegitimacy. And we see U.S. Elected officials in the Congressional Black Caucus, people like Gregory Meeks, people like Mondaire Jones, Ayanna Pressley, and as well as some from the U.S. Senate, Patrick Leahy of Vermont, has been very, very supportive, asking for accountability in Haiti, and really pressuring the executive branch to change its tune on Haiti and require accountability, and not give the benefit of the doubt to a hardened Haitian administration, which is morphing in more and more in a dictatorial direction.
Yeah. So I want to lean into that accountability, right? Given the context of complete upheaval that's happening in Haiti, which many can point to as the culmination of a series of United States-backed and interference, right? Where Haiti is a country that has been engineered to be unstable politically, economically, socially. And then looking at currently what's happening with deportations, expulsions, what does accountability in an internationalist context look like, right? Especially taking into account the UN has had a slew of violations against Haitians, Haitian citizens and the nation at large, as well as NGOs and ineffectiveness and kind of creating of a alternative status or alternative state of power. What does accountability look like to Haiti, and how do we actually get there?
There's a lot in that question.
I know.
I'll try to take it piece by piece. So,
yeah.
We actually see sometimes mixed signals from the Biden administration. There was actually a very courageous individual in the Biden administration who basically called out what's going on in Haiti. And we need to see more of that, because accountability means accountability at every level.
And it's good to be back. In 2010, when the earthquake hit, I came down here for several reasons. The President and I put in motion, with the help of a lot of other people, a major effort to try to rescue Haitians in Haiti from that earthquake. I don't know whether some of you had family there, you lost family, or they were hurt, but I If it was, my heart goes out to you, because it was a sad, sad, sad time. But the most important thing that we wanted to make clear was that we were going to make sure temporary protective status was guaranteed to all Haitians.
Absolutely.
Haiti has been ruled by decree now for over a year.
Yes.
When the executive basically forced out the parliament, never held elections, and it's really a slap in the face of democracy. And
Right.
we've seen this both with the current administration as well as under Martelly,
Yes.
where they don't hold elections at the local level, mayors, parliamentarians, and then they reward their not holding elections by saying, "Oh, sorry, your term is done," and putting their friends or those seats going to the highest bidder. And so we have seen, and this was part of the Federation of the Bar's interpretation, that those same rules that applied for the outgoing parliamentarians also have to apply to the executive, and that's one of the reasons why they came up with the February 7th, 2021 rule. So accountability means that you are a servant of the people.
Right.
Okay, and you in the central government is supposed to be at the behest of local authorities, of local communities, of locally based democracy, which we see in other places such as northern Syria, for example, where you have mayors, you have women's organizations who are really running the show. That's exactly what we don't have in Haiti today. 2 decades ago, we had a very vibrant mass movement. It is in extreme crisis today, and so we need to see more power at the local level. We need to see more power in women's groups. We need to see more political and economic power, across Haiti, rather than this centralized nation state,
Right.
which is acting against the interests of women, against the interests of everyday citizens, wherever they be in Haiti, whether they be in rural areas which are hard to access, whether they be in urban slums. We just do not see the accountability, because the vast majority of the people believe that centralized nation state is not accountable to them. And that's what we need to regain. And one of the things that we are seeing, and Jacqueline Charles in her reporting has mentioned this a lot, is the importance of organized civil society within Haiti. And these groups that, by speaking out and reaching out to them and giving them a voice, I think this is a major first step that we need to see. And of course, public funds, any public funds, need to be accounted for, and this is what we're missing. And again, we welcome the fact that certain decision makers in the U.S. Senate or House have been very outspoken that you do need to have that accountability, because otherwise you are simply rewarding people for their bad economic mismanagement or for outright theft and embezzlement. So those are some ideas how we can move toward being accountable. And finally, I would have to mention also the environment, which we don't talk a lot about that, but that is a
Right.
very, very key situation. The environment has been raped century after century, and basically, if we do not do something very quickly about the situation of deforestation, about the situation of basic sanitation, about all of these components, we are going to be in a very, very, very difficult outcome.
So I'm hearing you really making a call for decentralized government and governance, right? Democratizing of governance and having more of a say, the public having more of a say of where the funds that are received into Haiti through relief efforts, through sponsorships, where that's going, and making sure that there's more accountability in how it's spent and transparency, right? That's what it's sounding like.
Exactly. I mean, that really is the Democratic and Federalist textbook. If you look at it, where you saw, for example, after the earthquake in 2010,
right?
Massive amounts of money came in.
I think it was something like to the tune of $6 billion.
Yes, I mean, it was very, very, very large sums of money, and you had the CIRH, and you had different levels of coordination, and yet when you look, I mean, some of these housing projects, I mean, there was a lot that was going on there that the end user, the end supposed beneficiary, rarely was able to really benefit from a lot of that assistance. Now, it is true that a lot of that assistance was humanitarian, life-saving assistance. I was actually part of the effort in water and sanitation emergency coordination after the earthquake.
Yeah.
It gave me a special view on some of the very courageous coordination in Cité Soleil and other places, which did save lives, which did make sure that some of the displaced persons camps did have water that was treated, did have sanitation. And I, tip my hat off to some of the very courageous people who were part of that. But at the same time, we had major issues. You had a situation where women were basically what we could call sexual hostages, where if the Red Cross is giving food to the camp, and the camp committees would, if you were not either their family member or if you did not agree to compromise yourself, your family was risking starving. Yeah,
right.
and this is absolutely something that we need to change in our mindset, in our way of being, and our way of doing things. And so, I mean, we've seen a number of these crises in Haiti today, and this is the reason why it is absolutely, completely unconscionable to be sending people back to that reality.
Right.
That is basically a sentence to be risking your life and to be in terrible peril to do that. I would just like to add one more thing. The majority of the people that they are interdicting entering into the United States
are women and children.
Women and children who have made a 10-country trek from Brazil. I mean, some of the people have died en route between Panama and Costa Rica. You have places you have to go on foot or on kind of these small boats, and people are drowning in the water, and people are watching. I actually have a cousin who saw a close one drown while making that 10-country trek, and yet they arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border, basically to be apprehended and sent back. There's a lot of work that's been done on this. The Haitian Bridge Alliance has done a study in Tapachula in Chiapas about that situation, which is available online. And so we need to be making sure that people who did that 10-country trek have the right to speak. They have a right to asylum. They have a right to protection. They have the right to make their case. And simply deporting them on Title 42 unceremoniously without even a hearing is just an unconscionable act, which is happening during Black History Month.
Yes. So to close out and kind of wrap this segment, everything that you've presented is really speaking to some of the root causes of why Haitian people, women, children are fleeing from their home country, Haiti chérie, right? Fleeing in order to survive and have an opportunity to make a life here. And because of all of the root causes, those are what we need to focus on and address while simultaneously providing that rapid response and support once they arrive here. And so to close, I would like for you to tell any next steps. What is FAM doing? What are your affiliates doing? And how can folks get involved now to create that pathway for asylum seeking and to end deportations, expulsions, as well as get involved with addressing these root causes?
I would conclude by saying three things. FAM and allied organizations, such as FLIC, such as the Haitian Bridge Alliance, IGDH, and American Friends Service Committee, and many other partners are very involved in currently appealing to elected officials in the United States to put pressure on the Biden administration, pressure on DHS, pressure on ICE to reverse course, to stop expulsions, to stop any type of deportation, expulsion, or other forced removal from inside the United States or the border, and to provide adequate opportunity for hearings to occur. That's the first thing. The second thing is the issue of governance inside Haiti. I mentioned already about some of the asks about economic accountability, about the respect of human rights, about an even-handed approach to the constitutional crisis there, and not simply taking for granted an appeal for the president to remain an extra year, despite the fact that it's very clear, based on the reading of the Constitution, Article 134.2, that the term ended on February 7th, 2021. And I think Marlène Bastien, our executive director, she's always very vocal in the question of root causes. And in our recent January 12th, 2021, the 11th anniversary of the earthquake,
Right.
she gave a very, very impassioned speech and talking about worldwide examples, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Rwanda, whether it's the Kurds in Rojava in northern Syria, whether it's Chiapas, a lot of women-centered models, a lot of models which have made sure that we have efficiency, models that have fought historic racism. And so we need to, as a society in Haiti, be inspired by what's happening in other parts of the world where people have been able to change to change their way of doing things. And so I think that really it's this multifaceted approach that is absolutely necessary, not only to protect the dignity of Haitians here, but to transform Haiti in the mid to long term.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. You offered so much for us to think on and sit with and to be activated by. So thank you so much for coming in and speaking with GNO.
The pleasure was mine.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. This is Charlie Le Breton with GNO, and we will see you next time.